A very good morning, Brian, Carolyn, Adair. Great to see you. Hope you're all doing well. Just going to give folks 30 seconds or so to sign on in. Oh, hang on, let me turn my video on. Right. Hey, no worries, Carolyn. No need to apologise. I know people have got things on. Good to see you back. All right, let's get stuck into the session. Now, what we're looking at today is a very light calendar. We have nothing on of any significance apart from the FOMC minutes. And really, their significance is 50-50, with the next important data out for the US on Tuesday of next week, which will be the CPI inflation print. If you remember, on Friday, so it was Thursday for the NFP because of the July the 4th US holiday, we saw a stronger than expected headline print, 147,000, above the expected consensus of 110. The whisper number was about 100,000. And look at that unemployment rate.
And just to be aware, in case there's any follow through or commentary, according to the statement, China's market regulator is holding a symposium on fair competition.
And I was looking at the Fed's projections for unemployment this year, and it's 4.4%. So that is much better than the Federal Reserve was expecting. And that allowed the dollar to strengthen. Why? Because there's less pressure on the Federal Reserve now to cut interest rates. They don't have to, okay? And the pricing rapidly changed for an interest rate cut for July. It was quite strong chance of a July interest rate cut.
From this China
it's now not expected at all.
The anti-monopoly law enforcement and to boost efficiency in reviewing investment as well as M&A.
So a lot of that has been supporting the dollar. Now, I'm starting to read some kind of rumblings of the dollar short position being a bit stretched. Now, if you look at hedges, right, the commercials, they're building their long positions, hedging against the downside in the dollar. And you can see hedge funds are short. And if you look at the bias, they're heavily short now, 55% short to 45% long. But look, we are in this stretched positioning here in the open interest. Now, yes, sometimes the dollar can keep extending lower on that kind of basis. But what we have to be aware of here is that the dollar short positioning is beginning to look a bit stretched. Now, we'll keep that in mind, but given the fact that there's stronger labor data come out of the US on Thursday, and we saw the dollar pick up, if you look at the Dixie from the start of the year, it's been that selling. So just got to be aware that we could see a little bit of this reaching its stretch position and moving higher. I'm just going to have a look technically if there's anything on the monthly or the daily. We've also got this big support area in that 92-90 region. So we'll see. I'm not saying this is a time to go long the dollar, but I'm just being suspicious of the amount of time the dollar has spent being sent. Now, because there isn't really much data out there today, just looking around markets, the major move, and you can see here the DAX loving this, FTSE, China 50, Euro stocks. Trump says that the 7 tariff letters have been received today and that the EU is closing in on a deal. And also there's the general feeling around US President Trump that he uses these sort of tariff threats as bargaining tools, and there's no intention of actually putting on punitive tariffs. And I think that's right. If you look at what US President Trump said, and I do believe him on this, he said originally when he really put those strong tariffs on China, and China got sort of really quite worried. And I think it started, there was a lot of news media reports how the everyday Chinese person was starting to be impacted by these coming tariffs. And I think US President Trump looked at that and thought he didn't want to be responsible for putting so much suffering onto everyday Chinese people.
This one for the calendars. At the top of the hour, CEA Chair Myron is due on Bloomberg TV. So Myron there, due on Bloomberg TV at the top of the hour.
And that is in keeping with Trump's character. He was reluctant to, attack some Houthi rebels in his first term of office. I remember thinking quite interesting because he thought there was a chance of some civilians potentially being injured, and he didn't want to take that potential risk. And it was a relatively small risk. So I think that Wall Street has a way of saying this in a way that US President Trump finds offensive, which is taco Trump always chickens out. But I think the sentiment that's driving it is in keeping with the pattern of other decisions he's made, which is he doesn't like to directly impact large scale suffering. So the tariffs are just that. They're bargaining tools when he's like, it's going to be 50, 60. Remember, it was 145% on China. He has no intention of doing that, but it's trying to get people to get to the table and try to get a more equitable arrangement between US and global trade. Who knows? It could work out really well. We'll see. Certainly stock market's liking it today. The danger today, of course, is headline risk, that Trump will come out with some statement. And we are seeing, like, commodity markets, look at that gain in copper. That is phenomenal, that gain in copper futures. That is just on US President Trump talking about a 50% tariff on copper imports. Now, 25% was expected. That's a big surprise. Now, that can reverse as quickly as it goes up. Bear that in mind. Maybe having a look as a pennant pattern wouldn't be potentially unreasonable. So, if this goes up, breaks out of this level here, if we have a breakout of that pennant, then we could potentially look for a move higher. But the problem with it, and it is a big problem, is you've got to look out for, so the target would be an extension to that side, you've got to look out for the headline quickly reversing as Trump takes off those tariffs. Remember, a lot of it is bargaining, a lot of it is posturing, and the US needs a huge amount of copper, okay? If copper import prices are that big, then that's going to harm the US as well. So we'll see what goes on there. Markets are just in that state of, looking at the calendar, we can just see there isn't really much going on today. The only thing that's really up is the FOMC minutes later. 10-year bond auction, which could impact markets, but otherwise there's really not much going on. So order flow driven, headline driven today. That's the way it's most likely to be. In terms of in the market, silver remains opportunity for longs. You can see this 35 region is ideal for longs. If we can get back down to this area, expecting buyers from around 35, that is legitimate, and stops can just be placed underneath that 20 moving average. I don't see this as an unreasonable entry for that 44 all-time high. So I think that's very reasonable. If we could get down to that region, right, stop underneath the 20 moving average and looking for a run up, see if you can go all the way up to those all-time highs and potentially beyond. So I think there is like a 6-to-1 risk reward ratio there. That certainly looks very attractive if we get down there. So I am core long silver and have been on a number of different areas, and I keep looking for fresh ways to get into longs. That remains my bias, and there's nothing to change that at the moment. Pivot points, just looking if there's any decent, there's a decent pivot point as well here at the S2 and the S1. So that 35.90 region and this 35 region, not bad areas for going long in silver. That's the weekly pivot point on silver, and stops can be placed pretty safely underneath that 20 moving average. If you go back underneath that, or maybe this swing point here under there, then something clearly wrong. So that's silver. Do like that. Aussie New Zealand dollar. Now the Aussie's going up after the RBA surprise markets and paused interest rates, worries about inflation. RBNZ, no surprises from them overnight. They met, just kept rates on hold as was expected. They should still be cutting interest rates, but there was nothing surprising. I was thinking, is there enough for an Aussie New Zealand dollar upside bias? It's tricky. The Australian dollar upside will be based on the inflation concerns, tariff concerns. Let's have a look at the yield spread. Yield spread has peaked up a little bit, but you got that 200 moving average just operating as a resistance, and you see we're heading into that resistance level here. So maybe if you've got up over that resistance area possibly, but apart from that, I'm not really loving an Aussie New Zealand dollar long. So in terms of other currencies, that's all I could see. Just that silver position, which is a kind of quasi currency played against the dollar. Oracle, I still like this, and I'm long Oracle, and was long yesterday on that pullback to flag pattern, looking for a target up to that 245 region. Flagpole, pullback, breakout on balance volume, pushing higher, pullback, and bought into that. So looking for a move up to 245 in Oracle, perfectly reasonable. We'll see what happens there. Now going into the futures market, oh yeah, and silver as well. The other nice thing about silver is that July is the strongest month for silver over the last years. July's been very strong. Hey, Mark Anthony, and over the last 57 years, a very strong month. So silver is a nice area. And if you look at silver in terms of commercials and hedge fund, you can see commercials have been building in shorts, hedging against rising prices, and hedge funds are still building in their long positions to the upside, and hedge funds are predominantly long. We have hit the 90% open interest percentage.
Keeping an eye on recent moves in the crude complex, are seeing just recent lows here for WTI, just going below that $68 per barrel, down to around 67.78.
Now,
or rather, about 60, just above 67.90. Brent currently trading just around that $70 per barrel handle. In terms of treasuries, they're just seeing a little move higher in recent trade. Are seeing similar gains across the curve.
That little open interest area, just showing you the amount of open contracts there are in the futures market, is just pulling back a little bit. So it could be a nice pullback before we push higher. The fact we've hit the 90% open interest percentile, sometimes when you hit that level, you can just get an extended amount of interest in it. So we'll see where we go. We'll see what happens from here. But definitely worth looking at and worth keeping our eyes on silver. Let's look at the futures market. And there we go. Okay, so on the daily chart, remember we had sellers trap those buyers there. We pulled back and sold off, but we're staying above that standard deviation on the daily chart. We're now pushing higher. The inventory on the day is positive. And you can see here, daily chart, we are 5,000 contracts positive. So that's a strong buying day. Okay. Yeah, gold at the moment, I think there's potentially, if I had to guess, I'd say more downside for gold, Brian, on the stronger dollar story. And also the fact that the jobs data was strong, it just less attraction for gold. And also if risk sentiment's improving and people are feeling optimistic about the state of tariffs and the tariffs letters coming in and a deal nearly done with Europe, that's pressure on gold. So that's what I look. So I'd say sell bias on gold is my initial reaction. You can see here on the hourly chart, price pushing above the developing value area for the week. So we're clearly in a bullish condition. We can see that we've got buyers who've come in and they've rejected that standard deviation before the open. And you can also see now that we've got these sellers here trapped right before the open. So this is a nice area to look for potential buyers. And you got this value area high here, right? In fact, if you look at that whole area, that's kind of a value area. So this area here is now a nice area for potential buyers at the open, and I quite buy into that. If you look at it on the TPO, you can see that we're opening above yesterday's value area high. We're clearly in a bullish condition, and we're trying to push above Monday's high as well. So it's looking like we want to be buying today. So any dips lower, anything down to this region here is a clear buying opportunity. Any sellers that we've got trapped down here, that's a buying opportunity. Here is a buying opportunity. That standard deviation, again, is a buying opportunity. So you've got the developed value areas here. It's quite a tricky little area. So I'm going to put both of these thin areas here. You've got developed value area high there and developed value area high there. So let's just put that shape in. So it's sort of this zone. That standard deviation is excellent. The kind of best opportunity would be all the way down here if we got down to that 6282. So if we got down to that 6282, I'd be happy to buy in on that. All right, 6282. So I make it at a 6283, and I just run my stop underneath the VWAP. So pull down to there with the delta positive. That would be the first group of sellers getting tested. I'll be happy to buy into that. I'll just put it half a tick higher, just above the high. So if I get a touch, then I should be in. Okay, so that's what I'm looking for. I'm happy to buy into that even if I get in before the open. I think I might just tidy up these value areas. I think I'm just going to take that value area out. I'm just going to have this as the zone and here. So I'm not looking to enter in that area anyway. So at the open, entering there, or the very best opportunity would be there at the 6280. Adair, let's have a look. The candle at 2 o'clock. Yeah, on the 15-minute was bearish. Oh, here, but the delta was positive. Okay, not in and of itself, but it shows you that the sentiment is building positively. So if you look at that, so that was the 2 o'clock candle here, wasn't it? So it was really these sellers that were getting trapped there. So those sellers got trapped down here on the first standard deviation, and then it pushed higher, and then you saw a lot of buyers come in there. So in and of itself, no, it's not enough reason to go long. But if you were looking to go long from that first standard deviation and from that kind of value area high here, that value area low, develop one, that wouldn't be unreasonable to look for longs from there. Okay, so good spot there, and it just shows you that buyers are coming in, and since the open, the contracts are about 5,000. So that's quite a lot of buying interest. It just shows you that the buyers are sort of there. You know what I mean? Now, how do you take advantage of this? Well, the advantage is to buy on pullbacks. So given how bullish it is, heading into the open, I'm happy to buy if we move down to that standard deviation. So a move to that standard deviation is a buying opportunity for me. And we have got, a little bit of sellers trapped down there.
On EU and Middle Eastern relations. EU is to remove the UAE as well as Gibraltar from money laundering grey list, according to the Financial Times.
So positive delta continued to build in. You got this value area high here that we're now breaking through. So, if it's aggressive, you can see an aggressive entry would be at the 6290. Let's see.
Further in that Financial Times report, majority of groupings in the EU Parliament, meanwhile, backed adding Russia to the grey list during a hearing last week.
But I just feel like I want to buy into this. Just going to wait, see if I get a little pullback at the open. That's very attractive. All the deltas green. It's positive on the day. There's good news around. Maybe I'll buy in some small positions. I'll buy in some small micros actually. Right, just build it in. Okay, here we go. Let's see what we get. Now, can I get a buy down to this 6289? So if I can get down to there, 6289, looking to buy in. Let's see how the open is. Got some sellers trapped there. They're trying to push higher. Let's have a little look on point of controls right up here on the highs. They're trying to break out now. It's a nice area, see?
Just seeing Trump here post on US President Trump. It says anybody but too late, in reference likely to Fed Chair Jerome Powell, who he's attributed this description to many times. Anybody but too late.
We're moving into this. I'm in this lightly, but I'm in. Now looking for pullbacks. Tills to get in 6292 now. If I can get a pullback to that 6292, stops under 6287. Delta's positive, everything's just positive. It just wants to go higher, right? You can see this big area up here. So your kind of instinct was right on this, just to get in long from the open. And if we put it together, like what we've been seeing, look at the 6,000 contracts long. So this is a bullish day. We opened above the TPO here, above the value area high. We're pushing above yesterday's value area high. We're going through those single prints. Do you see how, if you take that TPO off, do you see how that up? Do you see how these three candles here, 1, 2, 3, and Najam's very good at seeing these, often points them out for us. But if you notice that single print area, it doesn't spend much time here. It's just zoom, and then it's zoom down, and now it's zoom up, right? And they also up and you stay above, down, you stay below, right? So we're in a nice area for potential, right, more upside. Hey, Konstantinos. So we are long. That made sense from the open, and I am looking to add into this. So look on the 1 minute. Okay, we had that point of control. Oh, hang on, where's my, that disappears. Yeah, point of control's now moved right up there to the 6300. Stalling a little bit around that 6300 area, just normal, big round number. Again, looking for opportunities to buy in the dip. It is too aggressive to join, that's the problem. Again, you see buyers trapping those sellers. Let's have a look at the on-balance volume, should be just pushing higher, broadly higher, stalling a little bit at the moment. Okay, maybe we're going to get that. That's right, Najam. It is, it's full bullish. It was kind of like, that's why I bought in early, just like, I just want to get in this, but I just bought in light with some light positioning. But look at this kind of environment, just sort of learn this environment. Above the value area high, those single prints, quickly up, quickly down, now quickly up. So we're likely, if we get above this area, we're likely to stay above it as well. So we could see a bit more action here. Let's have a look on the 5, see what's going on up here. So the only next area we've got trap sellers is all the way down here, right, at that 6292. So that's where I buy in again if I can get a pullback to the 6292. 6292 at enter. I'm gonna bring my, oh yeah, I'm with you, Mark Anthony. Look, oh yes, of course, Mark. I finally clocked your comment now, looking for that opening breakout range. Yeah, now that'd be nice to make up for that loss yesterday. Oh dear, totally different day today, isn't it? Just nicely opening bullish. Let's see where we go. Very bullish.
Just an update concerning DeepSeek. The Czech government does ban DeepSeek usage across public administration, says the PM.
Let's have a look as well.
Update from Brazil's Galapolo to say inflation remains above target, underlying measures remain high.
Right, so we come up to the R2 pivot point for the day. So that's like a reference point. And what else could we look at? Let's look at the implied volatility levels as well.
And more from Brazil's Galapolo says the job market remains heated.
So we're at sort of 6304. So the S&P is 6343. That looks like a decent target actually. So 6343 is the implied volatility level, which is all the way up here. So I'm just going to put that in as an ultimate target for this position, 6341. So if you get there, great. Let's see if we get any other opportunities to get in as well. Let's have a look on the 5. Delta's just continuing to tick higher. Those sellers there getting trapped, just buyers are saying we're carrying on. Nice little environment to look for a flag pattern as well. Sharp move higher, get a pullback against the trend and then go with it. Let's see how it goes. We'll have a look at a range of different ways to get into this.
Update from Bloomberg. US grants 45-day reprieve to Mexican finance firms hit by ban.
Okay, so we continue to march higher. We've had another 5-minute candle close. Delta remaining positive and we're pushing up even higher again. Right. Got that value area here, which is a nice kind of target, which is price is just absolutely reaching for. What's tricky on a day like this, Mark Anthony, is you've got the delta so positive, right? And if you look on the hourly chart, we're flushing through some sellers. You've got some sellers there, top sellers up there. If we could get past those regions, I know what you mean about like a pullback, but it's very bullish, right? And you look at the TPO, we're above that area. We're into the R2 pivot point. So it wouldn't be unreasonable to see some folks just taking a bit of profit here. But it's very, what I'm trying to say, it's very bullish, right? Look at the 7,000 contracts long now. Right, so people are just buying in this and they've been buying in it since the open. It's accelerated through the open. So where would be a good, see, that's not a bad area. 6,300 looks nice. Let's have a look. That's nice now, Jam. That is a nice double bottom here. So you see you got this double bottom breakout. So even, you know, any pullbacks are there, you'd expect to find buyers. So that is just, it's, and you see the way, what I pointed out, Mark, you see how that's up. You see it's up, stays up, down, stays down, up, should stay up, right? It's got that structure. And you see the TPO is this single print areas, and often price just zooms through these single print areas. It doesn't spend very long there. And that's what you're seeing there. Single print area up, single print area down, single print area up. That does look like a trend line break as well on the out. You see what I mean? On volume. So it's just all pointing to higher prices. You're saying there's head and shoulders on the 4 hour. Yeah, it does feel like that, right? I can kind of see it. Yeah, I can see that one. It's quite nice. Left shoulder, head, right shoulder. We're breaking out through it. All right, now let's have a look. So we're coming up to a 15-minute close, right? Right, so that for me just feels like another like go with the break on it, right? So I'm going to see if we do. So if I go down here, I definitely want to enter again 6302. So I've entered another long if I can get in at 6302. Let's see what we get here.
Just carrying out the usual market update. Following the US cash open, we have seen US indices open higher. SPX currently up 65 basis points, Nasdaq 100 up 78, and then Russell 2000 up 70 basis points. Have just seen ES futures just go above recently the $6,300 handle. In terms of sectors, they do open mostly in the green. Do see downside, however, in staples and energy.
We are above. Look at that.
By tech.
I got into another position.
Trade updates continuing to dominate the headlines on developments thus far in trade. For the day do include the EU Commission saying it is aiming to reach a US trade deal, potentially even in the coming days, while the Trade Commissioner Sefcovic said the EU regulatory framework remains non-negotiable. And then in terms of Apple shares, we've seen some pressure in Apple shares after the trade advisor Navarro thinks Apple thinks it is too big to tariff. And then moving on to the FX-based dollar index, little change at 97.61. Weakness against the sterling is offset by strength against the euro and Canadian dollar. Trade is to be the key event for the buck today on account of lacking US Tier 1 data, with Trump to release a minimum of 7 countries having to do with trade this morning, with an additional number of countries being released in the afternoon. And then with regards to the Kiwi dollar, that is little changed following the RBNZ's decision to hold rates as expected. In terms of Treasury performance, we are seeing gains across the curve amid steepening spreads. Attention also is on the 10-year note auction tonight, where US is to sell 39 billion. And then for crude prices, they are trading lower, just hit recent fresh session lows, WTI bottom at 67.70, currently down about 35 cents a barrel. Did also see earlier pressure from German Chancellor Merz remarks, noting that diplomatic means to resolve the Ukraine war have been exhausted. And then for gold, price action has been muted relatively this European morning. Gold price is currently down about $8, just hovering beneath the $3,300 mark.
See, nice little break here. So for me, where I'm looking to target now with these positions is if I can get all the way up to that sort of 6317, 6318, and then maybe think about a pullback. So if I can get a run up to 6317, I'll take profit. And I've just got the micros. I was not sure about, I wanted to be in, but I didn't want to be over the exposed. So I'm looking to take off at the 6317 if I can get it. You can just see everything's nice because the delta keeps building in. Even if you're not in this, learn from this as in, okay, this is an example of a strongly trending market. So, you know, good opportunities here. And, you know, entering at the first standard deviation is not unreasonable either. Looks like we're going to try and take out those. See, it looks like we're going to try and take out those sellers here now. Delta coming in, trying to take out those sellers. That would be important. Can we get those sellers out of the way? That's the question. Buyers coming in, see if they can flush out those sellers. That was the breakout. Yeah, see, and they flushed them out. So some of those sellers are a bit underwater now.
Coming up at the top of the hour, we are looking up for US wholesale inventory revisions for May. Expectations are for an unrevised decline of 0.3%. And then we are also looking out for CEA Chair Moran on Bloomberg TV.
Again, trying to take out these highs. Important area. Okay. Yeah, it does look good, Mark. Much better than yesterday, hey? At least it's a very strongly trending market. You had a nice 1 minute break above, definitely sliding higher. And that target looks reasonable up there. That R3 pivot point is up ahead. Try and take out sellers again. The delta's still building higher. Was this from the open? Bang, come on. Why does that always do that? Yeah. Yeah, so we're still trending higher.
Just on the copper front, the Chilean president says we are waiting for official US communication on copper tariffs and whether the copper cathodes will be included. Says Chile still waiting for US communications on copper tariffs.
Yeah, I see the issue. We've got some sellers trying to come in now. Coming up to a 5 minute close. Let's see where they can get to. So these are these late buyers. Quite a lot of the late buyers as well. Let's look. See, is that the last of the buyers? That's the risk, isn't it? That sort of us. This is great flag environment, isn't it? Yeah, that is really good. 69%.
And just a bit of UK related news. According to the Telegraph in the UK, public sector workers could be offered pension cuts.
5 minutes closed, but those sellers haven't been able to trap any of the buyers. So the buyers are still up there. 15, we got this level here, and there's still buyers coming in, right? So there's a little pullback. Let's see how far sellers can take it. That's the breakout level here. some sellers trying to come in. Okay, so there's sellers coming in, trying to trap those buyers. That's coming to retest that area, and you've got standard deviation holding on a first test. Quite a lot of sellers coming in there. They've trapped those buyers. They weren't, did they not quite trapping the breakout buyers, but let's see. Standard deviation, key area. We're coming up to a 15-minute close. I'm thinking flag time. Buyers giving it a go, only up to the point of control. Let's see if they can manage anything better than that. Sharp move higher, pull back, an ideal kind of flag area. On balance volume ticking lower. We may have a bit more downside to come still. Sellers trying to come in here, trying to trap those buyers. That's a crucial area.
It's around a minute and a half now to the top of the hour. Wholesale sales and wholesale inventory revisions for May, and we'll be on the lookout for remarks from the White House advisor Myron, who will be appearing on Bloomberg Television. 1 minute.
We come up to a 15-minute close. A nice test of that standard deviation. Let's see how far we can go with this. Buyers coming in, trying to push up through this level.
And inventory is unrevised at negative 0.3 in line with the consensus. Wholesale sales down 0.3 versus a prior revised down 0.
Can buyers come in here? Let's see. Point of control moving back up there now. Yeah, got it. NQ trying to move out of that flag. Makes sense. That's trying to break out as well.
And a bit more from US President Trump. Again, at the Fed, he says our Fed rate is at least 3 points too high. Too late. It's costing $360 billion per point, claims, per year in refinancing costs. Trump says no inflation, companies pouring into America, the hottest country in the world, lower the rate. So once again, familiar criticism from US President Trump, who says that US rates are 3 points too high, and that's costing US $360 billion per point per year in refinancing costs.
Yeah, it's quite a thought now, Jim. A domestic arrangement. Imagine if you were in your family every day. Some of the conversations would be out of this world. Right, so you got this flag pattern, you've got a breakout on volume. I think I can just go one extra position on this. So I'm going to take it to another position. And I'm going to see if I can get a little bit further now with that flag pattern having broken out. You see, you've got a breakout pattern, breakout pullbacks. I've added another position. Oh, now Siri's activated for some reason. Siri, can you go away, please? You're starting to go back down here. It's not a great area. I don't really want to be going back down here. I want buyers to come in here, defend this level. But we're under the point of control. We're under the standard deviation. That's a negative aspect of that. The only positive is there's not a lot of sellers coming in here. It's a bit weak. Now here they come. Right, they're taking that out now. So here's a pullback. They're the sellers. And
just in case it has any follow through, not seeing any details just yet.
Those buyers got trapped there.
Iran-related sanctions, according to the Treasury.
See, those buyers have got trapped by these sellers here.
And folks, the CA's Myron now starting his interview on Bloomberg.
So you've got that area there. The delta is still positive, so you can kind of ignore it. Just want to see if we can get back higher.
Myron sees uncertainty beginning to reduce in the near term.
Important area here. How's the NQ doing? Pullback, but it's still alive, isn't it? It's looking a lot better. Yeah, it's getting hotter again. We've got a little bit of a hotter time temperature-wise as well as the market-wise in the UK at the moment.
So Myron asked about the impact on copper prices, and he's distinguishing between general prices and realized prices. He notes that there will be some price changes. And just for the Brazilian rail watchers, the Brazil BCB's Galopolo says rate setting committee is bothered by unanchored inflation expectations.
Now we have got like a pivot point that's just sat here, the R2 pivot point. So I might just see if we get some buyers at that area. So I'm just going to give it a little bit of time to see if buyers come in against this. You see, those buyers are trapped, which is the problem.
Myron suggests that the US needs more copper and it needs to produce more domestically.
So now we're having a test of that. That's the R2 pivot point here being tested. All right, so a key area for testing, right? Let's see how it reacts here. That's this area here, see? So we may just see a little bit, there's a little bounce that's just off the initial test, you can see. All right, so we're testing it, having a little bounce off that area. Cheers, Carolyn. Take care. Good to see you.
So on copper tariffs, Myron was asked for a date when they'll kick in, and he does not have that date.
Right, so that flag is just getting bigger and more attractive, actually.
And just be aware, US President Trump reiterating some criticism on Brazil for their treatment of former President Bolsonaro.
That flag pattern's looking a bit more attractive now. Oh, he says that as sellers come in. Let's see.
And Trump just retweeting his criticism of BRICS nations. He reiterates that any countries aligning themselves with the anti-American policies of BRICS will be charged an additional 10% tariff. Again, it's the message he put out earlier in the week, and just posting that again.
Yes, which makes sense, right? Technically, we are still bullish. This is the area to go for. Got the R2, so, you know, this could hold. Let's see. So I'm not going to add another position to this because I kind of feel like, okay, that's okay. But I'm looking for this flag to potentially break out. Point of control still holding, but stopping prices going higher. Point of control capping prices. See some sellers building in here now. So they can get vulnerable if they start to get trapped. So let's see. Right, we try and have a bounce off that R2. 5-minute flag pattern here. You can just see in pure price action terms. All positive sentiment wise. Let's have a look. Holding under that point of control for now. Point of control capping prices. Testing the upper end of that channel.
Just back to Brazil's Galapolo, just reiterates the sentiment does not target any particular FX level.
Some buyers coming in now. We've got buyers coming in, but we had a firm rejection of that standard deviation. So let's see here. Do like that break. That is attractive. Don't like the way it rejected that standard deviation. Let's see. Got a nice flag pattern, potentially. That, yeah, so that looks like a false break of that area, doesn't it? That R2 still holding.
And folks, Myron has concluded his interview on Bloomberg Television. Didn't really learn anything by way of new information from his interview. And just a comment from Mexico on tariffs. Mexico's president says, let's wait when asked about Trump's tariff on copper imports.
Right, now this is a tricky one now. I think that I'm going to call that a day there. Give it a second. It's tricky. I'm on the verge of sort of closing this out because that point of control's held once, twice, 3 times now. I think I'm going to exit this and try and re-enter. Right, so I've closed all those positions. I don't mind re-entering, but I need to do so on better terms.